Welcome to week 6. The topic for this week is likeness and difference among children with a focus on early childhood development. Please take a moment to consider the analysis questions prior to watching or listening to this video. The purpose of these questions is to activate your prior knowledge and thinking around this week's topic. With an understanding that all children are unique, consider number 1, how do children differ and how are they alike? 2, are all children teachable? 3, should children with exceptionalities be labeled? 4, think back to your own educational experience. How were exceptional children treated and supported? How did this make you feel? And 5, how can educators support children's differing needs in an inclusive manner? This week we are focusing on both likeness and difference among children. Many of you have taken child development classes where you have learned that developmental sequence is often the same for children. However, the rate of development may vary. Developmental sequence has been well documented through research and represents one similarity among children. How else are children alike? Through your experience with children, what similarities have you seen among them? Please consider this question for tutorial. While children are all alike in many ways, the remainder of this clip will focus on how some children are different. We will discuss students with exceptionalities. The Education Act, Section 1, defines an exceptional pupil as a pupil whose behavioral, communicational, intellectual, physical, or multiple exceptionalities are such that he or she is considered to need placement in a special education program. The term exceptional is only used to describe students who have been so designated through the Identification, Placement, and Review Committee, or IPRC process, which occurs at the school board level. This is a formal process governed by Regulation 18198 that determines the specific exceptionality category and the placement for the student. The IPRC may make recommendations about special education services and programs for the student. Remember that the exceptionality categories are for our convenience only as educators in communicating and cannot begin to represent the true essence of individual students having the exceptionality. Although labels provide us with shared language and can assist with gaining the necessary programs and support services, it is important that, as educators, our language communicates in ways that are respectful and professional, remembering that we refer to the student first and the disability second. So, for example, a student with a learning disability. This is referred to as people first language. Definitions of the 5 exceptionalities are provided at the Ministry of Education link on your screen. In Appendix D, categories and definitions of exceptionalities found on page 33. Exceptionalities include behavior, communication, intellectual, physical, multiple. Please visit the Ministry's website for further information on the listed exceptionalities. It is important to note that a medical doctor and educational psychologist are able to provide a diagnosis for a child with an exceptionality. Educators do not diagnose children. However, we are the experts in providing inclusive educational experiences for our children. There has often been much debate over whether children should be labeled or not, and you will find valid arguments for both sides. First, it is important to highlight that while a child may differ, it is quite likely that they resemble their peers much more than they differ from them. A child with a developmental disability may move through the same sequence of development as other children, however, at a different rate. A child with a disability in one area, for example, perhaps a learning disability in mathematics, does not necessarily require special programs in all subject areas, for example, language. Finally, it is important to highlight that some babies and young children may begin life with serious challenges that may delay their development. However, early intervention strategies can support these children, and by the age of 2 or 3, they may catch up. Note the example of premature infants. Low birth weight infants may experience some developmental delays. However, many show no long-term disability. As a reminder, children from birth to age 3 who have a developmental delay or diagnosed condition or are identified to be at risk for a developmental delay may qualify for early intervention services. These children will have an Individualized Family Services Plan, or IFSP. Children from the age of 3 and above may have Individual Education Plans, or IEPs. For further information on IFSPs or IEPs, please see the documents uploaded to our learning management system. The following case demonstrates what may happen if a young child is incorrectly identified and labeled. At age 3, William spoke very little, had difficulty following directions, and showcased few play skills. He scored low on an IQ test and was subsequently placed in a preschool for children with intellectual impairments. At age 7, it was discovered that William had severe hearing loss. As educators, while we do not diagnose or provide treatment, this is the responsibility of the medical profession. As educators, we can record our observations, report what we see to the special education team and physicians, and provide for early and inclusive intervention for young children to support development as much as possible. With the diverse needs of our students, it is important that our programs are developmentally appropriate. There are some advantages of labeling. It can enhance public awareness of developmental difference. It can support gaining governmental funds. It can ensure that appropriate services and supports are provided. It provides common terms to facilitate communication between professionals. And it can identify specific medical conditions. Developmentally appropriate practice is teaching that takes into consideration the child's age, experience, abilities, interests, and includes a program with high and realistic goals and expectations for the child. Characteristics of a developmentally appropriate program include beginning with where the child is. This involves continued assessment and an understanding of how the child learns and what interests them. Next, educators should scaffold student learning, working within the child's zone of proximal development. As mentioned previously, challenging yet achievable goals should be set. A variety of instructional strategies should be employed in order to meet the needs of the individual child with a specific focus on leveraging their strengths. Finally, spending time to plan a program that capitalizes on differentiated instruction and purposeful exploration is key. Educators should not leave development and learning to chance. Instead, purposeful planning and intentional teaching should drive early childhood experiences. Please watch the clip below where an early childhood educator describes what intentional teaching means to her. Following the clip, identify points that resonated with you and points that perhaps you disagreed with. What does intentional teaching mean to you? Your synthesis questions for this clip include: Number 1, what does intentional teaching mean to you? How does this translate into your practice? Number 2, how can you support inclusive education for students with exceptionalities in your class? For this week's tutorial, please come to class prepared with 3 to 4 slides summarizing key findings on development across one domain in early childhood and describe how technology can be used intentionally to support development across this domain.